All right, please go ahead.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Justin McAdam. I am the chair of the Distressed Unit Appeal Board. Thank you for joining us today. We do have a full agenda today. As we do, well, I guess first of all, I need to call the meeting to order and recognize that we have posted notice in accordance with the open door law. As we do at each of our meetings, we will invite members of the public to provide comment to us. If you haven't done so yet, please send a message to Courtney letting her know that you would like to speak. We will do that after we take our first item of business, which is the approval of minutes. So we have one set of minutes listed in the agenda today, and then Courtney sent around the minutes from our May 7th, our meeting from last Friday. I trust that everyone's had a chance to look at those. If everyone is all right with it, I'd like to take them together. Are there any comments or edits for the minutes? All right. I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we would accept the minutes as drafted from the March meeting as well as the May 7th meeting.
Is there a second?
Second, Rebecca.
All right, Courtney, would you call the roll?
Sorry, Paul Joyce,
Yes.
Wes Bennett,
Yes.
Tracy Brown,
Yes.
Rebecca Kubacki,
Yes.
and Justin McAdam.
Yes.
All right, 5-0.
All right. Minutes are approved. Courtney, do we have anyone who has signed up to provide public comment?
Yes, we do. I have 3 individuals at this point signed up for public comment.
All right.
So just give me a second here.
As a reminder, while Courtney gets that set up, we ask that individuals limit their comments to 3 minutes, and Courtney will place a timer on the screen, so you'll be able to keep track of that, and we will remind you as you get close to the end of that time. Okay. First individual I have signed up for comment is Ms. Josetta Shropshire. Ms. Shropshire, I'm going to unmute you. Hello, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Greetings. My name is Josetta Shropshire, and I greet you as a woman of God, concerned citizen, and business executive. The energy of my ancestors comes forward with me now to deliver this urgent message for the correction of a grievous wrongs against the students of the Gary Community School Corporation and the citizens of Gary, Indiana. As a concerned citizen and business owner of Positive Promotions Ltd., I could hardly believe in the middle of Black History Month 2019, the all-white DUAB board voted unanimously to close Roosevelt without any local representation. MGT Consulting currently manages the district under a state contract. Under this predatory MGT group, 5 Gary schools earned F grades for 2 straight years. One school had 49 dropouts in 1 year as the firm continues to make millions of dollars. Now the firm is profiting after failing to academically turn around Gary's struggling schools or help our children succeed. I am involved as an alumni, former class officer, and daughter of a 30-year faculty member of Roosevelt High. The school was created out of need to house Black students because whites didn't want to attend classes with African Americans. Roosevelt High has been listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and the community has always seen Roosevelt as a structure that represents quality and excellence. I submitted a proposal during a recent RFI process in October. My firm, Positive Promotions Ltd., was the first and only company to attend the walkthrough in October. Unfortunately, I received a negative response turning down my proposal, so I subsequently sent MGT a rebuttal letter. No one has yet responded to my rebuttal letter. MGT and the superintendent were out when I stopped by the office to talk, and they have yet to acknowledge my visit. I believe MGT is being disingenuous. If they were really interested in providing a viable solution, they would have taken time to meet with me and others. How did they determine that my proposal has no sustainability sustainability. This proposal for urban agriculture, specifically hydroponic and aquaponic farming space use at Roosevelt, is not only viable, but it also addresses issues of unemployment, food scarcity in this region. We protest the greed and short-sightedness, the unfair and unjust practices of MGT and the current administration against the students of Roosevelt and the citizens and community of Gary. One of the most prestigious universities in the United States has recently reviewed the very proposal I submitted to the Gary Community School Corporation. Their response was the complete opposite of MGT. Emory University saw the merit in this project and awarded me a fellowship to study the current urban agriculture practices at their expense to bring this information to share in Gary. We are requesting that you restore Roosevelt now because it is morally and the just right thing to do. The committed citizens and alumni of Roosevelt should determine the future of this historic site of excellence. We also request a full voting position on the DUAB board. Justice now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, I have Ms. Pauline Tatum. Ms. Tatum, excuse me. All right. Actually, Ms. Tatum, I'm going to come back to you in just a minute. Oh, wait, actually, are you there, Ms. Tatum? Can you hear me? I'm going to come back to you in just a minute, Ms. Tatum, or after our next commenter. I'm having some technology difficulties here. Oh, there you are. All right, we can hear you. Is this Ms. Tatum? All right, wonderful. Please go ahead.
Can't hear.
Can you hear me?
Can't hear.
Okay. I'm going to circle back with Ms. Tatum after.
Oh,
Yes, hello, we can hear you. Can others hear her? Okay. Ms. Tatum, please go ahead with your comments.
I can't hear.
Okay. Okay. Let me move on. I'm going to go to Ms. or Dr. Michaela Spangenberg. I'll I'll circle up with Ms. Tatum to get her taken care of. Dr. Spangenberg, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. I want to address again one of the many injustices that we have experienced under the current the current system with the state and MDT, which of course from the very beginning has been the inequality regarding our advisory board not being retained as a school board as it was in Muncie, but our takeover for some reason by the state was much more harsh. They got downgraded to an advisory board, and now of course MGT has started to play a variety of games in which they pretend based on rumors that we only have half an advisory board, that the other half aren't legitimate, even though everyone's registered with the Secretary of State in the state of Indiana, and they sure seem to have a record of it. So if there was no paperwork turned in, how did the Secretary of State get that information? It's very strange, but MGT nonetheless tried to appoint their own members when the advisory board wouldn't accept that, or the remaining advisory board members that MGT would even speak to wouldn't accept that. Then MGT simply started sending misinformation to the advisory board members that they do not want in place and telling them the wrong times for the meetings. This kind of nonsense has to stop immediately. We need our advisory board members treated with the same respect that the members of this DUAB board would expect in a similar circumstance. I'm sure no one here would accept the kind of treatment that we're being asked to accept in Gary by MGT. Because when they show this kind of disrespect for our advisory board, they are making a mockery of our entire community, and we refuse to accept this. What's happening is illegal. What's happening is unethical. You cannot interfere in the business of people who have been rightfully appointed or elected to a public position and pretend that that is legal or ethical. It is not. Furthermore, it's already been made clear that, thankfully some people are receiving the ambassador emails regarding a meeting that's in 2 weeks, but it seems very apparent that there's not going to be a consistent meeting time, that, the meeting time is going to shift, and if people can't make this meeting or that meeting, then they're out. So they're playing the exact game, it seems, that they're playing with the advisory board. I think that Ms. Shropshire made many good points, regarding how people who submitted RFIs were treated in our community as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Unfortunately, Ms. Tatum is no longer on the line with us. She was the last individual I did have signed up to provide comment, but it does not appear that she's logged in any longer. So
Okay.
that would wrap up our public comment. Let me switch the screens back.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Well, our next item of business is our regular update from Dr. McNulty. Dr. McNulty?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, thank you for having us to be able to speak today. We have lots of updates that we'd like to share with you. I'd like to start with talking about a new partnership that we were approached from the NAACP, and that enables us to host an apprenticeship program that they have sought through LaPorte and also Lake County in partnership. And they're going to host at our Career Center an apprenticeship for solar panels. And they have 15 slots that are available, and they have offered us 2 to 3 slots for our students who want to go through this program. It's a free program for our students and for any community member who wants to make application. They will have an interview and have to go through a process. And if they're selected, it's a wonderful opportunity for someone to be able to get a great opportunity upon completion. And it's my understanding it's about a 1.5 to 2 year program. So again, it started this week at our school with the training, and we have several students are interested, and we're looking forward to following their progress as they move through this. But it's a wonderful opportunity that we expect that's going to expand as the years go on. We've also applied for the grant opportunity through the IDOE for the Strategic Planning Consortium, related to COVID relief funds. And that's an opportunity that the state has asked for school districts to apply for, so that we can talk with other districts like us and also other districts who aren't like us, so that we can collaborate on different ways and opportunities to spend the ESSER funds that would best utilize growth for our district. So we have filled out the application, and we're looking forward to seeing if we're selected by the end of the month, and we'll certainly let everybody know the outcome of that. Additionally, in an effort to continue wraparound services for our district, we're really excited about a new partnership that we have entered into with the Gateway programming. And that is a community service for students in our district currently who are in credit jeopardy. And so we have a small group of students who have had difficulties with their credits. And so this group comes in and works with us side by side with our teachers. The students not only are getting obviously their schoolwork with us during the day, but they're also staying with us then past the school day for tutoring, counseling, whatever those services are that are hindering them to be able to get their credits. Gateway services, along with our staff, are working side by side to help them so that they can make it towards the goal of graduation. And during the middle of this process, we've also discovered that several of those students' parents also didn't have their high school diploma. So we've expanded that program, again, in collaboration with Gateway, for those parents to be able to get their high school diploma. So we have several parents who are working side by side with their students getting their credits and going to walk across the stage hopefully this June to get their diploma as well, which I think is very powerful. We're really excited about that because we're not only helping our students graduate, but helping families change as well. So we're excited about to be able to offer that and hopefully continue. We have 45 slots in that program. We have about 16 of those filled at this time. So we have room for growth. If anybody's listening out there and wants to join, please call our high school because we're looking for more members. We are hosting graduation in person this year on the football field outside. So we're actively getting that ready so that the students can walk across the stage outside and have our families and community members socially distanced in the stands. And we are excited that Dr. Vernon Smith and Eddie Melton have agreed to speak this year at our graduation. So we look forward to our wonderful event to be able to celebrate that milestone in our seniors' lives. As we've been talking about, we're moving to a new student management system, and that's called Skyward. That is well underway, as Daryl's smiling there because he's been working tirelessly on this effort. And we've had dozens and dozens of trainings already with our staff. And we're going to have lots this summer, over the summer, with our students, staff, and parents. So please look online, families, or on our website for lots of upcoming sessions, both here in person and on. We'll have tutorials online as well. We're going to do an in-person registration as well. We've been doing registration all along. We've already started that, but for those families who are having difficulty registering online, we're going to do an in-person registration at Westside High School for 3 full days this summer. And in addition to having our IT department there to help people transition into the new system, we're having it as kind of a one-stop shop, if you will. So we're going to have the health department there giving shots. We're going to have school uniforms there, so you can get your school uniform. We'll have the sports physicals there so students can get that. We're going to have all sorts of vendors, dozens and dozens of vendors around the gym and in the hallway so families can come, get registered, and then also take advantage of a multitude of community agencies there that are there to assist them as needed. So we look forward to that, and we ask our parents to continue to look online. We're also doing robocalls for that so they can get the information as to when those 3 days are. We will provide transportation for families for them to get to Westside and provide meals during the middle of the day as well. And we also have daycare available at the gym. So if families come and have little ones, moms, you can leave your kids at the daycare while you're filling out the registration information. So if there's anything else that we've missed, please let us know. Contact us so that we'll certainly be able to assist you. We wanted to let you know, as we've been talking and celebrating about our basketball team, that we're very proud to talk about our students who are graduating from our basketball team, and that 5 out of the 7 seniors who are on the basketball team have received full scholarships this year for going to school. And again, that's not only for their athletic ability, but it's also for their academics. We have one student who's leaving us with a 4.3 grade point average, and he's got scholarships to probably 12 different schools right now that have been offered to him. So we, again, attribute that not only to their natural abilities for sure, but also our coaching staff has done a phenomenal job of instituting the study tables at the beginning of the school year, and our students were diligent about coming into school and attending those study tables so that we can make sure that they were up to speed with their academics. And we're going to continue that on with all of our sports programs, but that was a huge success, and we want to make sure that we congratulate them because that's a huge undertaking. So nice job, coaches and students. We look forward to watching your careers. As I mentioned, we continue to push our enrollment campaign. We are actively enrolling students, and we have seen an increase in our enrollment thus far, and we look forward to having, we believe, a continued enrollment in the fall. So keep an eye on that. You might have noticed that the Westside Leadership Academy, in addition to having the Roosevelt vaccination site, also hosted a mobile vaccination clinic at our school. And we did that after Dr. Box contacted us a couple weeks ago and asked us if we would be receptive to having that within our gym. And we said, absolutely. So in 3 short days, we were able to mobilize with her team, getting that set up at our district. We provided transportation shuttle buses around the city. And so it was available to not only our students, but to their parents and any community member that was available or wanted to come. And so we had many families and kids that took advantage of that. And we will continue to partner with the city and Dr. Box's team for more available opportunities as needed. But we're hopeful that we're getting more and more people vaccinated so that we can be have all the students back in the fall. Wes, you had asked me last time we met about giving you an update on Miss Mia Neal. And so I wanted to make sure that I did that because we were very excited to also celebrate her accomplishment. And Mia Neal was a Gary native and a Horace Mann graduate who recently won the Oscar for makeup and costume design for her work on the Netflix film May Rainey's Black Bottom, featuring Viola Davis. And Miss Neal made history as the first African-American woman to win an Oscar in this category. She's done lots of media interviews, and she's always proud of her roots here in Gary. Her mom still lives here in Gary, and we're proud that we're able to celebrate her success. We've been able to post all of her victories on all of our websites, and we hope that she'll come and visit us someday. But congratulations, Miss Mia, and we're proud to say that you're a Gary graduate. And lastly, tonight is the opening, or the soft opening, I guess, for the Hard Rock Cafe. Tomorrow's the opening for the community, and the Jackson family is here in town. And we want to say that we're excited that they'll be here tonight for the Hard Rock opening, but they have agreed to come to West Side tomorrow for a visit. And so we welcome them and look forward to having the Jacksons back in their hometown as well. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. McNulty. That certainly some great updates to share there, and glad to hear about the academic achievements of our sports team members and what they've been able to accomplish on and off the court. Are there questions for Dr. McNulty? Comments?
Mr. Chairman, I would just want to thank Dr. Page for that update on Ms. Neal, and again, I extend our congratulations to her, and that's a big deal, and very well deserved, I'm sure. So next time she's in town, I hope she can pay the school a visit.
We do too. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question, just to you've been back in person now for a few months, and you're getting ready to wrap up the year. How's that going? What's the response been? What are people saying?
Yeah, it's going really well. We have approximately 58% of the students back in person. We have summer school starting quickly after school ends, and we are filling up those slots very quickly. So we have I would say thousands of kids coming to summer school, which is a wonderful thing. Again, that's a extended summer school from 9 to 2 with lunch, breakfast and lunch being provided. So we're hoping that we get all of the students back in summer school, but we've made a big push, and so far lots are signing up. So I think that's a good indicator for us that all students are planning to come back in the fall, and we'll continue to keep you posted. But things are going well. The staff's doing a great job working with the kids. The PPE is still being followed. And again, the crux is everybody's got to get vaccinated. So we're hoping now to host another vaccination clinic for those 12-year-olds and older for those families, so that we can continue to keep those numbers down.
That's great news. Have you had any in terms of spread of the disease or infections? I assume you haven't seen anything extraordinary out of that. Similar experiences to what other school corporations are having, that low rates with little transmission?
That's correct. We have had a couple of incidents, but nothing that's alarming, and we were able to mitigate and quarantine as necessary and carry on. So nothing at all alarming, and I would actually say lower than some of our neighboring districts that I have been in contact with.
That's great. That's great news. Will you guys have an in-person learning option next year, or a virtual learning option next year as well?
We will, yes.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chairman,
questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yes. Dr. McNulty, when will you have some solid figures or solid data on graduation rates and how you're moving the academic needle?
We're watching graduation rates daily, hourly almost. So we'll have a better sense, because some of those students are right up to the wire, as I mentioned, and we'll have to know, and we won't know until almost the week before graduation, because some of them, it's contingent on them, on their finals. And then certainly then, as all school districts, you have an opportunity to take summer school for some of the students who are right on that bubble and needed 1 or 2 more credits. So they have this summer to take summer school, and we wouldn't report the graduation rate then until the fall. So we have 2 summer school sessions actually for seniors, 2 that will go all the way until the end of July, actually.
This is Rebecca Kabaki. At this point, do you have a certain number of graduates that you know of that aren't borderline that you know are going to be graduating? A
Yes.
percentage? And what would that be?
Percentage? I would say 60-some%.
How many of those others that are not in the graduating column right now do you think will get there over summer school or with some remedial help, catch-up help?
About another 10%.
Great. Other questions or comments for Dr. McNulty before we move on?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I have to comment and compliment basketball players and the coaching staff, and that was really impressive. I think that's to be commended. I guess the question I have to answer today is, how do we take that model that has been so successful in the basketball program and extend that into other parts of the school, even non-athletes, because that kind of success speaks for itself. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Point well taken. And so we, as you mentioned, we are already doing that now across all of our sports because it was so successful. But to your point, yes, we needed to look at how to extend that through everything. So we're looking forward to, as I think we've mentioned before, looking forward to offering other things that are not athletic based in the fall that we haven't had before at the district, such as Science Olympiad, Spelling Bowl, things like that, so that we can participate and compete against other districts. And so I think with those opportunities will also give us more chances to have that in collaboration with study tables, because the kids are eager to stay after and participate, and that gives us a captive audience to say, let's do this and let's do some study table remediation, get you going. So I think that we have some great opportunities, and I think the students are very excited about that, and staff is as well.
Great. Well, thank you, Dr. McNulty. Appreciate your work there, and look forward to finishing out the school year strong here as we head into the summer.
Thank you.
All right. Well, our next item of business today is a first look, really, at the federal funding that came as part of the COVID relief package and the plan that Dr. McNulty and her team, in conjunction with Eric and the MGT team, have put together for how to deploy those dollars. And so I think today the intent is to give us a high-level overview of that plan and begin to lay out some of the process for how they plan to move forward, and then with an expectation that they'll be back in front of us a few more times to flesh out some of the details of that as they work through how to spend what really is a pretty extraordinary amount of money that they'll be receiving in a short period of time. So with that, I'll give it to Dr. McNulty or Eric. I'm not sure which one of you is on point for this one.
I think that's Mr. Parrish, Eric.
Okay. I know he was having some technical difficulties.
So no.
Eric, you're currently muted if you're trying to speak.
Can you hear me now?
Can.
Okay. So yeah, all sorts of technical difficulties today. All right, very good. Well, thank you, and good morning, everyone. As Justin said, this is an overview of our strategy and spending plan for the elementary and secondary schools emergency relief, or the ESSER dollars. As Justin said, an extraordinary amount of money is flowing into the Gary Community School Corporation, approximately $71 million that covers the 3 ESSER programs. We call them 1, 2, and 3. ESSER 1 was actually quite a while ago, and that was about $4.6 million, and all of that money was spent or allocated to return to in-person learning. That was the singular intent of those dollars. ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 we rolled together. They're different, but they have a lot of similarities. So we roll those together, and that's approximately $67 million. ESSER 2 runs through the end of 2023, and ESSER 3 runs through the end of 2024, although we will, as I said, combine those dollars in the initial phases. What we're presenting today is a framework, and I'll open with this and I'll close with this, that this is a living document. The strategy that I'll outline today will stay static. The spending plan will be very dynamic. And the reason for that is the situation continues to evolve. Who knew a year ago that we'd be in the situation we were? And what will happen in the future? Well, I think we've all learned over the past year to make those plans fairly fluid, as well as we will course correct. We have ideas and we believe in those ideas, have high confidence in those ideas, but at the same time, we need to monitor those, which we will, and make sure everything is working exactly the way we want, and we know some things won't. And so we need to be nimble and agile to continue to update those plans and make sure we're doing everything we can. The ESSER plans, the way the funds do come from the federal government, but there's some state agencies that have a lot of involvement in that. Indiana Department of Education, the State Board of Accounts, and DUAB all have a role to play with us in the strategy and spending of those dollars. Similar to how Title is funded and approved is how the ESSER dollars are approved, and that runs through IDOE. So the actual approval and the adherence to the parameters and guidelines, similar to other federal programs, and that's IDOE. DUAB, and what we're looking at today is the strategy to make sure that it is meets the needs of Gary Community School Corporation. It's consistent. It meets our guiding principles, and that it's aligned with everything that we have been and will continue to do. And then SBOE to make sure we're compliant over time. We're presenting 3 phases. The first phase of the strategy program is today, the overview. What are the guiding principles? What are the categories for the spending plan? How will we go about presenting the details? Phase 2 will be the details, and that will take place over the next, at least the next couple of meetings and maybe even longer. As we continue to assess the situation, continue to maximize the dollars, I'll explain that in just a moment. It will be a building process that each time we're together, we'll have another block in the building process in building up to the actual spending plan itself. And again, that will then remain fluid. And then the third phase is the ongoing monitoring to make sure what we propose is working, and if it's not, how we're going to course correct, and how we're going to measure, how we're going to monitor, and what are the outcomes for each of the programs and initiatives that we determine are the right situation and the right recommendation. We're calling this an integrated strategy in that ESSER dollars don't stand alone. And what I mean by that is we're looking at the district as a whole and all of the revenue sources, state tuition, federal title programs, special education, food and nutrition even, taking all of those revenue streams as well as ESSER and putting those together and saying, what is the best way to maximize these dollars? There's some overlap in how the dollars can be spent. And so our task is to make sure we're spending given dollars out of the right revenue source to maximize that. And that's where we need to be flexible and agile. An example is there's quite a bit of facility repair that's allowable under ESSER. And we have the School Improvement Fund already in place. And so we need to look at that, this is one example, to make sure, are there projects that can be funded out of ESSER, for example, taken out of the School Improvement Fund, so that other projects that may not be allowable under ESSER can then be inserted into the School Improvement Fund So we get everything we want plus more that we didn't think we could get, and still be compliant and still adhere to our guiding principles. So that integrated strategy does take into account not just the ESSER dollars, but all of the revenue sources that we have. I mentioned the term guiding principles. The two guiding principles as we develop this strategy and present it today are these. Number one, to continue to improve academics. And number two, to continue to build a sustainable district. Everything we do in this strategy of combining all the revenue sources, including ESSER, has to go through those two filters, continuing to improve academics and continuing to build a sustainable district. That'll be the guiding principles. Under those guiding principles are 5 categories in which we will develop a spending plan. Number 1 is instruction. Number 2 is technology. Number 3 is facilities. Number 4 is equipment. And number 5 is temporary personnel. Those are underneath those guiding principles. Those are the categories. And then under the categories will be programs and initiatives that roll up into the categories that roll up into those guiding principles. As we put the plan together, we're not only looking at the revenue sources, but we're looking at literature and documentation, best practices from across the country, as well as the IDOE's Accelerated Learning Guide, and reaching out to multiple sources to get what is the best practice, what is working, what has not worked, as well as aligning to our own path forward, which we presented months ago, and make sure top to bottom, but more importantly, bottom to top, everything is in alignment. And everything we do will be evidence-based. There's a number of resources that we can draw on to make sure that the programs and initiatives that we choose have been tested, are measurable, are monitorable, and have the desired outcomes. The community has been and will continue to be involved in crafting the strategy and the spending plan. A survey has been released asking for folks for priorities. It doesn't go to the program and initiative level, but what are the priorities? This is very similar to what we did with the school improvement fund at the very beginning. What are the priorities? And then we put those into line item level. And other groups as well. The Ministerial Alliance and the referendum ambassadors will be or have been involved in the discussions regarding the plan itself, as well as the teachers union, which is our partner in everything we're doing. The guiding goals, again, those 2 principles, you will see the decisions and the recommendations that we bring forward. Some of those will have a very direct tie, very obvious tie to continue to improve academics and continuing to build a sustainable district. If we're doing extended summer school or a more robust summer school or an after-school program, anything wrapped around learning loss that has a very clear, direct line from that program or initiative back to that guiding principle of continue to improve academics. We'll see some of that. It's direct, it's obvious, we'll know what it is. I want to point out that many of the initiatives will have an indirect tie to those 2 guiding principles. It won't be as straight of a line, but there is a line. As we go through those indirect programs and initiatives, again, they'll be in compliance, they'll adhere to the parameters and guidelines, they'll be allowable, and they'll be approved by IDOE. But they just might not have that direct line. An example is the roof. We talked about that earlier in 1065. Improving our facilities may not have that direct, perfect line to in-classroom instruction. However, the term is used, rightfully so, is suitability, education suitability, that if the building conditions are unsuitable, learning can't take place or take place at a diminished level. If the conditions are suitable, then learning can take place. And so improving the facilities will improve the classroom environment. The classroom environment will improve the academic performance. So there will be indirect ties to many of the programs and initiatives. But again, everything rolls up to those 2 guiding principles. Within those 5 categories, within those 2 guiding principles, we will put in the more detailed plan in phase 2, we will assign percentages to those 5 categories. And we'll do that on the front end, and those then become our targets or our goals. Now, that could change over time as the circumstances change. If something's wildly successful, and we want to do more of that, we can reallocate the percentage of the dollars that are being spent in the plan. Likewise, if something isn't working as well as we can, and in another category, something's off the chart for success, we want to be able to, again, be flexible and agile to move those around. So in the detail, we will see in phase 2 the target percentages and why we chose those percentages. It goes without saying that the highest percentage will go to academics, so go to that instruction category. And even though we've been separated instruction and technology into 2 separate categories, those are really hand in glove. The technology we're talking about is classroom technology and virtual technology that we came to rely on over the last year. So all of this is exciting. It's tremendous good news for Gary Community Schools, for the students, for the families, for the community. It's a once-in-a-generation opportunity to really accelerate, use that term deliberately, the progress that Earth is making and to really have a positive impact. However, there's challenges, and there's lots of challenges that come with this type of windfall. 2 of them to highlight today is that we have to guard against what I call initiative fatigue, that there are dozens, if not hundreds, of valid, credible, extraordinary, in some instances, programs and initiatives that we can undertake to accelerate academic performance and mitigate learning loss. We have to be careful that we don't go crazy and just choose a whole host of great ideas, but by choosing too many ideas that we can't implement the ideas that we really want. And so we have to be very deliberate and very strategic about what we choose and how we implement it. It's not just the best programs and initiatives, but the support and the training that comes with it, and making sure we really focus. The second significant challenge is not to dilute all the good initiatives that we settled on those 5 categories, and we want to make sure that what we choose, what we recommend, what we implement, what we train for, and ultimate outcomes roll into those 5 categories that roll up to those 2 guiding principles. So we have to be careful on both those. Too many initiatives, it's too overwhelming. I mean, think about change, how we implement change, and this is a lot of change all in a short amount of time. And so we have to be very deliberate, very careful, and then not to dilute the programs and initiatives. So I'll end with where I started, that this is an ongoing process. It's very fluid, it's very flexible, it's very agile. Today, we present this high-level overview that we have 2 guiding principles, and we have 5 categories that fit under that. Phase 2 will be the details, that representative initiatives and programs that roll into those 5 categories with metrics. And the metrics will include how we're going to measure, how we're going to monitor, how we're going to report out, and then what are the desired outcomes? Is it to improve academics? Is it to include suitability? Is it to enhance enrollment and attract new students and retain our own, which probably rolls through everything? But what are those metrics that we'll measure, and we'll present that in a document over the next several meetings, just because it is a building process. And then following that, and concurrent to that as we get closer, Courtney and I, Chairman McAdam and I, will work with what is the right cadence to present information. I imagine, but we'll let everyone else here decide. Is it frequently? Is it monthly at first to say, here's the building blocks and we're building and building and building, and then we get it all put together? And then is it still monthly? It may be. It's a tremendous amount of money. It's a once in a lifetime thing. So maybe we do that monthly and eventually taper off. Maybe it's every other month, maybe it's quarterly. We just want to leave you with that's something we'll figure out as we go, meet your needs, to not only report, but to monitor. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions about the overview of that ESSER strategy.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate your focus on strengthening the foundation of the district, and really investing in building that foundation so that we can sustain, these initiatives and sustain the investments that we make. I think that's the right way to be investing these dollars. One of the things I know we talked about, and I just wanted you to touch on it briefly, is if there are some specific initiatives that you've begun to think about that I think you may anticipate bringing to us before you've had a chance to flesh out the full plan. And if you could just touch on sort of that timing and cadence and how you plan to approach that. If that's changed, just and we'll just forget that I said that.
No, yeah, absolutely. So I think of this, what's a good analogy? That there's a whole lot of effort and energy at the front end that's tied to the types of programs and initiatives that we're undertaking and the timing. Let me even work backwards. So December 24, December 23, ESSER 3 respectively, ESSER 2 respectively, moving backward in the deadlines for expending the money. That seems like a long ways away, but it's really not. And to take the programs, to adapt them to our unique district and to do the training, I'm talking about academic and instructional classroom types of things, but even the more facility-driven types of programs and initiatives that require labor and scheduling, and lots of money is flowing into districts from lots of different, from the federal stimulus, and folks are doing projects all at the same time. We've already started to see on both sides, both on the instructional side and the programs and the training, as well as the facility side, the scheduling of the labor and getting the projects in the queue. There's a tremendous demand all at the same time, and it's creating one more challenge maybe I should have added. And so when we talk about nimble and flexible and agile, that's certainly how we collectively are going to need to be, especially initially. To meet those deadlines, if you work backwards, certain things just have to come at certain timelines, and there's a bunch at the beginning to make sure they get all of the runway and fully implemented and integrated as necessary in the timeline available. So that's to say, as this plan is being built out in June and beyond, that we will most likely come to you and say, here is part of the plan that we know it's a cornerstone or it's rock solid, it's not going to change. It's not everything, the plan is 100% complete, but we know today this is an integral part of it, and we need some approval and some oversight and some conversation and question and answer around that. I highly anticipate that's going to happen, all because of the timing and getting in front of, getting top of the queue for some of these projects that other people are going to be competing for. Does that answer the question? Just as a long answer.
It does, and I think that makes sense. As we've discussed before here, we don't want to miss opportunities just because we're still figuring out all of the details of every dollar. There's a lot here, and I think we're going to have to be flexible as we do that. So I just wanted that to be something that the board was aware of up front, and so that it's not a surprise if and when we see things coming down the pike that way.
Yeah.
Are there questions for Eric regarding the federal funds? Well, I will ask one other, which was, I know you're surprised that I have another question. So one of the issues going sort of back to the timing, I know that the Department of Education has a pretty tight application deadline. At least initially, you have to submit an application for these funds. I believe that's here within the next week or so, maybe within this week. And but the sort of the important principle to remember there is, while you guys need to put forward an application that lays out an outline of a plan, that plan can be changed and is flexible, and that is your intention, so that you're sort of putting in place a placeholder so that we don't lose the opportunity to receive those funds, but recognizing that we'll be back around as you flesh out this plan in more detail and more depth here, and amending that plan as we go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing that I could add to that. Maybe just elaborate very briefly that there are deadlines that are short for IDOE on ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, one in May, one in June. But as you just stated, those are placeholders. And again, I use the Mooson analogy that how the title program works, that you submit, it's vetted to make sure it's compliant, to make sure it's allowable, one of the terms used, that it fits within the parameters and guidelines. But then once that's approved, there's an opportunity, multiple opportunities, there's no limit to the opportunities to amend and to say, here's where we were 2 months ago or 6 months or a year ago, and here's where we are today. And this is, instead of A, B, and C, we want to do D, E, and F. Not only is that allowable, we fully anticipate that will be the situation.
And if I could just piggyback real quick, Eric, I also wanted to say that we have also and will be providing the copy of what we're submitting to IDOE so that you'll understand that it's parallel to what we're talking about here when we ask for contracts to be approved. They'll be the same. And any amendments that we make, we'll make sure that DUAB has a copy of that as well.
Thank you for that. I think that helps. And you know, I want the public and the board to understand that this is a collaborative and transparent process that that we just have to navigate together, given the tight turnarounds that are required. Okay, well, if there are no additional questions, we'll look forward to seeing. I suspect as we dive into more detail on this, there'll be more comments. And I do want to note that Senator Melton was unable to join us today. I know he was very interested in this topic. He was at a conflict. He had a speaking engagement with the Lieutenant Governor today, and so he was not able to attend. So I expect that he will have some questions next time and maybe follow up in the interim.
Yep.
Okay, well, with that, we'll move to our next item of business on the agenda today. We do have a consideration of a number of contracts here. The first is related to the purchase of Chromebooks, and this relates back to the one-to-one computing initiative from last year. If you want to present that and walk us through that.
All right, thank you. I would like for you guys to consider new Chromebook purchase. We did an RFP at the beginning of the year. We first put it out for publication on January the 25th, and we received everything back by February 19th, and then we made a decision on March 1st regarding our getting new Chromebooks. We chose a company called Trifera. We had several categories that we were looking into, which would be price, warranty, white glove, Google license, cases, accidental damage, and charging cards. Most of the companies that we seen actually only had piecemealed it together. Trifera was the only company that checked all the boxes. And at the rate we are losing, the Chromebooks are coming back damaged or whatnot. Usually we put in a 10% area of errors of damage or things of that nature, but we're seeing anywhere from 24 to 26% of damage computers up to this point. At the end of this month, we will have our Chromebook returned. I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but if it's going with the current way things are going, we're still looking at that range of between 24 and 26% damaged, and then the warranty, of course, has ran out. And the good thing about Trifera is this is a 3-year warranty, and the warranty is good because if we can't fix it, they'll automatically fix it and or replace it. So this is something that we are needing moving forward so that we can maintain that one-to-one atmosphere and for our students. I have been on the phone with Trifera, and they do have these in stock, thankfully. Soon as we get the okay, we will move on getting them here within the next month or two.
If I could just also piggyback on what Mr. Riddell had to say. As you remember, last year we did not include the insurance or the warranty, if you will, because we didn't know what we didn't know, to be honest with you. And we were moving heaven and earth to get them here quickly. It was the recommendation of the company when we bought it at the time not to get the insurance because their recommendation was mostly 10% will be damaged and it wasn't worthwhile, cost effective, if you will, to get the insurance. We have not had that experience. And so this company that we're looking at today has a cheaper insurance plan and will be able to meet the needs of our business.
Will that assurance apply to all of the Chromebooks you currently own, or just these new ones as you add new ones?
Just the new ones.
Just the new ones.
Just the new ones. Okay.
This is Rebecca. I
Yeah.
have a question. You've got 26% of the Chromebooks come back damaged. Are there any consequences to these kids regarding the damages?
Yes. Currently what we do is if it's damaged, the district has taken the policy that they don't get another one. So we give them paper or pencil or whatever they may need to make sure that they can maintain their education. And if it's in-house, if the child's in-house, then we can supply it in-house, but they cannot take it home.
Is there any, in terms of, I know we were talking about training with parents and kids around how to handle these, and probably focused more on the content, making sure that we were engaged in safe web surfing practices and other things. But have you guys contemplated any, or do you go through any sort of best practices with the kids about how to handle the computers and do's and don'ts to avoid damaging them?
Yeah, we have had a series of, at least myself has had a series of training, not only with parents, grandparents, students, to make sure they know how to utilize it, take care of it. The current Chromebooks also already have a case on them. So sometimes when they come back damaged, it's pretty deliberate. We have had it just ripped to shreds in some cases. It's kind of shocking, but yes, to answer your question, we have had training and tutorials and things of that nature to make sure not only the child, but also the parents or grandparents are aware how to utilize the Chromebooks and hotspot.
Mr. Chairman, I have a.
Yes, please, Wes.
Mr. Riddell, could you tell me if the board approves this purchase? I believe it's for 1,000. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What will that make our inventory then of usable, or what was the first purchase with this 1,000? How much will that?
Yeah, the first purchase was 4,700.
Okay.
This purchase will probably get us back where we were last year with another 1,000. So I'm assuming with the 20 to 26%, that's about 1,100,000 to 1,200 damaged Chromebooks, give or take. So that'll get us right back at 4,700 Chromebooks.
So these are essentially, these 1,000 are replacing ones that are damaged, that are not usable again. Is that a fair statement?
That is very accurate. Yes, sir. Okay, I can't hear you. I think you went mute.
Oh, Wes, I think you're on mute, or
yeah. When I get out of here and go to my screen to look at the contract, so I should be good now. Thank you for. So looking at the contract, there it is. Got an expiration date of 3/31. Are they still going to honor this?
Yes, I was in contact with them, and they were aware of this particular meeting. Once we okay it, then we will proceed, and the contract will go forward.
Does it need to be modified at all from the standpoint that I believe, I'm not sure what page it's on. I think it's on the second page of the quote. That the Chrome Education upgrade, Google will raise the cost on March 9th.
Yeah. Yeah, we looked into that prior to, and it would stay at that particular price currently.
Okay. And I see that the terms are net 30. Is that 100% net? I mean, is that going to be, are they going to give us the 3%? Well, it's a discount for cash or check payment. So I'm assuming that they're going to, we're going to pay them this amount, and then they're going to deliver after we pay.
I'm not sure on how.
Yeah, that's correct, Wes.
Okay. I think those are my only questions about the quote and contract.
Well,
Thank you.
Could you touch briefly on which funding we'll be using to purchase these? I don't know that we talked about that.
It's coming out of title.
Title funding. Okay.
Same as last time, right?
Same as the last time.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question on page 14. That in this document, which is the contract that you want to sign, it says that computers are not guaranteed and may be 6 months out from being delivered, which would be contrary to what you're saying, that they're saying that they're in stock. If this is the contract, that would need to be changed.
Yeah, when I talked to them about the 1,000, some of the products were would take 6 months, but this particular one, they had something like 5,000 of this particular unit on hand in the storage unit. So once
I'm all about talk, but I'm more about putting things in writing.
I understand, I can get you that.
It has to be in the contract if I'm going to vote on it, that you're going to get them.
Okay, I can follow up with you today and have that in writing for you from the company.
Thank you.
Paul, if it is acceptable to you, we can have Courtney follow up on that. With
Yeah, I just don't want them to get them 6 months from now or a year from now when they need them now.
Right.
And that's the most important thing is, I mean, and unfortunately contracts, they can say, well, the contract says you're not going to get them till, well, one, you filed the purchase order, 5 weeks later, we're going to put it in, and 6 months later, we said you might get them.
Okay.
And that is what the contract says.
Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't be opposed to voting on this now with a contingency that Paul's stipulated language be included later today or tomorrow. I'm not opposed to voting on it with a contingency that Paul, if Paul's comfortable with that too.
I'd be more than happy to do that. I just know these companies sometimes they offer things that, you know, it's.
Yep. Been there, done that, or
Chromebooks.
been there, experienced that. I've experienced the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'd want to do is just make sure we leave enough flexibility that, you know, without knowing what the company is going to say and exactly how they'll negotiate that, I don't want to leave Gary Schools in a position where they don't have an actionable contract to be able to move forward. So
I definitely want them to be able to purchase the notebooks they need to move forward with their school.
yes, and then negotiate the I can always do a trailer agreement to negotiate the delivery date more specifically to match what they've promised.
That'd be fine.
So would the motion have to be altered contingent on the verification of the Chromebooks being delivered, you know, by X number of date, or can we vote on it just in general?
I think based on how we've done things in the past, I think we could do the motion as long as it's an acceptable date as accepted by the chairman.
By Courtney, executive director.
Executive director or Chairman McGann.
Or chairman, yeah.
So I'd be fine with that. And
I think that leaves flexibility to handle it.
And with that, I would make the motion that we move to authorize Gary Schools Corporation to purchase 1,000 Chromebooks and associated accessories and services through Trifera at a cost of $477,885, subject to the Chairman Gaddam or Courtney approving that the purchase will be supplied timely.
I would second.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Courtney, would you call the roll?
Yes. Paul Joyce,
Yes.
Wes Bennett,
Yes.
Tracy Brown,
Yes.
Rebecca Kubacki,
Yes.
Justin McAdam.
Yes.
5-0.
Great. contract is approved, we'll follow up on that, and we will circle back with the board to let you know what the outcome is on the additional detail.
And thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Riddell. Appreciate your being here with us today. Up next, we have a consideration of a contract relating to the football field and replacing the turf on that field. Who is presenting that contract today?
I'll present it.
Okay.
Okay, so we are asking for the board to consider the replacement of the football field. We currently, as you know, have a grass football field, and to be competitive and for the safety of our students, we are looking to replace that. We're asking for that now because, again, of the timeline for us to be able to get it in over the summer months before school starts. And also we want to do some other improvements around the field, and that needs to be done so that we don't tear up a new turf. The track will be finished here in the next 10 days, and then they would be able to hopefully start soon thereafter. Again, this would help in the long run reduce costs for our maintenance of our field as far as irrigation, watering, the striping, and again, the safety with the enhancements of all of our sports facilities that we'd like to do around the district. This would enable us to continue on with our efforts as far as unified sports, because we'd be able to do some more sporting events for our students with disabilities on a field that's not as in bad disrepair as ours is currently. And again, be able to afford us to bring in other groups such as Pop Warner and other agencies like that that would be willing to and wanting to use our field because of having a turf. Again, this is not unlike many of the districts around us who have turf, and we're just hoping to continue to make those enhancements for our sports arenas.
This is Rebecca. I have a question. If you allow other people to use that field, are you insured in case there's an accident from another school?
Yes, they have to submit insurance. Yes.
Okay.
Dr. McNulty, could you speak more specifically about the cost savings? I hear a lot from schools about the cost savings, but I'm hard pressed to be able to, or to be shown what those specific cost savings are and over what period of time.
Sure, no problem. I think Nicole is on, and she has researched that a lot, so she's going to be able to share that with us.
Sure. Hi, good morning. So there's absolutely definitely an upfront kind of cost savings with, we're able to pay for this out of our 1065 fund. So our general operations pays for our lawn maintenance, and we have to pay for seeding and fertilizer, irrigation, things like that. Unfortunately, in Northwest Indiana, we were not blessed with great soil. So the option of either doing sod or things like that and the general maintenance with the weather and the rain on our fields really take a toll. So turf really provides us, a much safer option with much lower maintenance that would be paid out of operations. So it's actually going to save us quite a bit.
Nicole, I think
I'm still not hearing a dollar amount.
Right. I think it was $40,000 when we researched it, Nicole, for annual upkeep of our football field, and a turf is annual maintenance of about $8,000. And
the lifetime of a turf field can be anywhere between 15 to 20 years. And again, that's something that we would have to pay a minimal maintenance cost on out of operations.
Okay, let me rephrase what I think I just heard, that the current field, which is in terrible condition, costs you $40,000 a year.
Correct.
Plus or minus.
Correct.
It depends on the weather, et cetera, et cetera. The one that you're going to spend $800,000 on is going to cost roughly $8,000 a year.
That's correct.
Okay, so 32. So it's going to take, so that's quick math. That's about 350,000 over 10 years with no inflation factor. Okay, I'm not sure that the numbers are totally adding up from a cost saving standpoint. But
I would
we've
also
got,
look at it as an enrollment enhancement as well, enrollment.
okay, so,
perspective. Yeah.
okay. All right. It's a beautiful, beautiful surface. It does attract attention. It will attract families and students.
Absolutely.
Could you speak to the specifics? I'm confused, or I don't understand the difference between what was quoted and the voluntary alternate. What's the difference between Vertex Prime or Field Turf and Vertex Prime? There's a cost difference, but what are you getting for the extra 34,000? And what is your plan to do if this gets approved?
So they're all, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Nicole.
I'd say there are alternatives included in the contract that also includes like the design and engineering fee, also some graphics, different lettering, things like that, and then different options. I think those are just recommendations that are included in the quote, but until we, engage and can make a decision on what's the best alternative, if any, to decide, I don't think those have been decided as of yet.
But from a product standpoint, does anyone know the difference between the Field Turf versus the Vertex Prime?
I do not, Wes, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I do not.
If I'm,
yeah.
Chairman, yeah, I won't sit here and tell you I know the exact difference for these two products, but just the analogy, it's just a little bit nicer of a product. It's kind of the, buying a Chevrolet versus buying a Cadillac type of analogy, I guess.
Okay. And the rationale between the logo, the difference in the logo, the size of the logo in the center of the field. I think the quote and the aerial that we see, or the diagram that we see, is like a 40 by 45 or something, and then there's an alternate for a 60 by 64.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious as to the background or the rationale behind why that needs to be included, or what the thought process is to have two choices there.
They'll just present to us two choices as we move forward to see which ones we like. They'll give us a digital of what it looks like.
Which one do you like?
The 40 by 40.
Okay. And so, did you ask for the alternates, or did they just offer those?
They just offered those.
Okay. And the alternate number 5, is that the design and engineering of the other 4 alternates? Is that what that cost is involved?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'm not real keen on scrolling down here. Maybe I've scrolled past it. I'm not real keen on the payment terms. I think they're asking for 50% up front. Can't find it now. 40% at the time of the materials being delivered. So they've got 90% of the money, and with probably 10% of the work done. I know that I think they said they was preferred. I'm certainly at the will of the rest of the members of the board, but I do have concerns about paying 90% up front without even 40% of the work being done. The other thing I would ask is have you talked drainage on these fields is critical. I'm going to assume, based on what I've read, that they can drain it off the field. But have you talked with the city about where it's going to go once it gets off your property?
Yeah, so they actually came several times, this company, and they've done a walkthrough, and they met with the city engineers as well. And we're, made sure that the water drainage issue was not a problem, because that was a question that we had as well. And then just for you to know, Wes, this is also a company that's done 2 or 3 of the neighboring districts fields. So we did get references from several of our neighboring districts who've had a good experience with this company, because we wanted to make sure that obviously that we were getting a reputable company.
Sure. Well, that's it. And do you know, Dr. Page, if the payment terms were similar from
The
your
payment
neighboring?
terms were exactly similar.
Yeah. Boy, that's risky, but
But we're willing to go back and, try to renegotiate.
and I believe weren't there some bond performance and payment bonds? I see that there is one in there, but sometimes trying to collect from those can take a long time. Are you comfortable with the I'll call them the contingencies that are not included in the price? I know there's quite a list. Rock excavation, site security, boring for utilities, et cetera, et cetera. Are you have you put a soft number on those? Because you're going to run into the reason they're on here is because you're going to run into some of these. Maybe not all of, hopefully not all of them, but you're going to run into some of these.
Yeah, so our facilities director and the city, and because we'd already done the track around, we kind of understood what we were getting into because of the track issue. So yes, we've taken that into account, and we believe that we'll be able to handle that in-house without a huge expense.
Okay, here it is. I found it on page 29, the conditions. I think my last question is on section D. Is that 28 calendar days, or is that working days? So I'm assuming it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks is what this is telling me here, probably.
That's correct. 4 to 6 weeks is what they've told us.
Okay. All right.
Which is why we were trying to start it over the summer, so it'd be ready for football season.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Dr. McNulty,
that's all I have.
Or Nicole, could you touch briefly? So this project is being funded from where?
1065.
From the 1065 funds. Is this in the current plan that we have?
It is not, and so that is that'll be the revised plan that is coming to the board next month, because we've had to crosswalk now between the new ESSER funds and 1065 so that we can replace things. And so Mr. Tanner and I have been working diligently on revamping that plan so that we can present that to you at the next meeting.
And just to kind of pick up on that, going back to the conversation with Eric on the ESSER funds, essentially there's going to be a lot more dollars dedicated and directed to facilities. And so basically this allows you to expand your wish list. And this is one of those projects that we're we have to say yes to it before you've quite fleshed out the entire plan, going to that conversation earlier. So if I understand it from our conversations before, the idea is that there's going to be some projects that are currently in the 1065 plan that are going to be able to be funded with the ESSER funds, the new federal funding that we're getting, which is going to free up that 1065 pot, which is a lot more flexible to tackle some of the other priorities that we need to take care of.
That's correct. So for example, in the 1065 plan was roofing and HVAC, which now can move into the ESSER pot. So that frees up some of those funds. So we've been able to look back through the list of needs for the district and put new things into that 1065 plan, which is a good problem, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I think what I would ask is, when you do that, don't just bring us a 1065 plan, bring us a comprehensive capital plan for the entire district, now that we have multiple sources of funds that we can dedicate to this, so that we can look holistically at that, and then you can identify for us which funding source that might be coming from, but so that we have a sense of what the whole picture is.
Absolutely.
I think that will be helpful in facilitating the conversation, and then it provides us a nice benchmark to work backwards from as we get these requests, so we can be saying yes.
Yes, I understand.
And I know that in this context, we've already had conversations. I know you've spent a lot of time talking with Courtney about this particular ask. This one is more time sensitive, and so that's why we're here today.
Yes.
Are there other questions for Dr. McNulty or Nicole?
I would ask, where's the community at on it? I mean, I'm sure you've had input from the community on this topic.
Super, super, super excited. I can't emphasize that enough. And actually, to be honest with you, because people are so excited, we've had 2 or 3 students from neighboring districts that have already come over and enrolled to be at our district because of the football field. So I do think it's going to be an enrollment factor. I do think it's going to help with safety. And I do think we'll be able to use it for facility rentals in the future as well.
And if you don't mind, I would love to speak a little bit on the benefits of a turf field. You know, we talked about the cost and if there's any, you know, if there's any savings, but the one thing about a turf field, when you don't have a turf field, as many of you know, when you play a game on Friday night or Saturday night or whatever it might be, the field is pretty well tore up the rest of the week. And so there's a lot of maintenance that goes along, you know, over the next week so that you can have it prepared for your next game night. What that does is that does not allow the team to be able to practice on the field or anything else. You can't have any Pee Wee or Pop Warner games on it because the field is being, you know, repaired. And so it really becomes just a game day field. With a turf field, you can practice on it because you're not tearing it up. You can have, you know, other athletic events on it, maybe soccer, or the band can get out there and practice on it as well. The marching band, you can have Pop Warner or other entities play on the field and still be able to use it for game night without any problem whatsoever. So I know it's an expense, but it does create an opportunity for larger use of the field for not just the football team, but also the football field, also the football team as well, where they don't have to go to a practice field or something of that nature. They can go out and practice on their field. I just wanted to bring that up.
Mr. Tanner, I think those are all excellent points, and I would agree. Is there anything that you or Dr. Page could do to work on those payment terms a little bit instead of 90% up front for 10% of the work? I'd like to see that modified a little bit.
Sure, I'll call them and modify that payment plan for sure.
Thank you.
Dr. McNulty, this is Rebecca Kabaki. Kind of going back to the contract, the 50 up front, then the 40, is that standard for every school that they put these tracks on? Or is it just the situation with Gary? I mean, is that what they normally do for any track that they would put in?
Yeah, so when I spoke to the neighboring districts who use this, I asked that question and they said, yes, that was their payment terms as well. And I think it's because it's such a quick turnaround of installation, perhaps, and that they have to order the supplies and get it here, but I can certainly negotiate that with them.
Rebecca, if I were their CFO, that's what I would ask for.
And if I was a state examiner, I tell you, you can't pay for things in advance.
Yeah.
Well, I am the state examiner, but you're not supposed to pay for things in advance.
Yeah.
And so tell them that won't work. And it's not our job to buy their materials for them. You know, we're purchasing a product. It should go equal down the road till completion, and final payment is made after it's done.
Yeah, and I've had that conversation with previous vendors of mine, and they understood. So I think if Dr. Page, if you had that conversation that you have the state telling you that this is the way it's going to be, I think they want your business for $850,000.
I agree.
I can tell you that you run a risk if you pay it up front that you're not going to get anything. I mean, I've seen where people pay it up front and then they go bankrupt the next day and you are out the money. And I mean, you need to make sure that the money is backed by the product.
Okay.
Kind of on that note, Paul, with things are so hard to find anyways, just supplies. And you hate to put that money up front and then they come back and say, well, you know, we can't get the supplies that we need because of COVID or whatever. So I agree with you, Paul. I think you can pay that money and then they could come up with any excuse for not being able to complete it on a timely fashion.
Yeah, I don't want to. I'm not going to speak for Paul, but I've been in this position many times. I would not be opposed, and I have done a 5 or 10% good faith down payment. So, and again, Paul is still right, but a 5 to 10% good faith down payment, the signature of the contract. Paul, how do you feel about that? I won't put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, I'm not opposed. It's just you're not supposed to pay ahead of time. That's part of doing business with government.
Yeah.
And just because somebody did it next door doesn't mean that it's okay for us to do it wrong as well. I think we just need to do it the right way. We can be the ones to stand up and say we're going to do it the right way. We're going to pay their bill. They know that. I mean, they're not going to get. That's part of doing business with government. You're going to get paid, and you know, most of the times we pay a little bit bigger premium for that.
Well, I think these are all great points. Appreciate the robust discussion here. I think you know, nice to be able to bring a lot of experience to bear on this issue. You know, we'll work with Dr. McNulty, Courtney, and I just to understand what they're able to accomplish here and be able to iron out some of these concerns if the board is comfortable with that. With that, I entertain a motion.
I think to entertain the motion, we would have to have these contingency, the negotiation of the contract, because I feel like we're voting on a contract, but we're not happy with the payment terms of the contract. So I'm not sure how we handle this.
Yeah, I'm happy to entertain that. My read was that we'd like to try at those things, but maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe we'd be comfortable moving forward. We don't want to stop the project from moving forward if we can't get there, I guess is my.
I'd be happy to work with Courtney and Justin to ensure that we don't pay upfront.
We could do something similar to what we did on the last contract with a sort of a contingency with Courtney and I providing some sort of sign off after the fact that it's consistent with the will of the board here.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we authorize Gary Community School Corp to contract with Field Turf for the installation of the turf at the Westside Leadership Academy field, football field, at a cost not to exceed $936,400. Understanding that this amount does include the 5 alternates as indicated on the quote, and this motion is contingent upon the negotiation with Gary Community Schools and the Field Turf company, that payment would be in the proper manner as prescribed by the State Board of Accounts, handled by either the chairman or the executive director, Scoffsma.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Courtney, would you call the roll?
Yes. Paul Joyce,
Yes.
Wes Bennett,
Yes.
Tracy Brown,
Yes.
Rebecca Kubacki,
Yes.
Justin McAdam,
Yes.
5-0.
All right, we've approved the contract, and again, thanks everyone for the discussion there. We'll work to make sure it gets in the right place.
Thank you.
We have one final item of business today, and that is the consideration of the English Language Arts curriculum contract. Dr. McNulty, is that going to be you?
That's going to be Kimberly Bradley.
Okay, Ms. Bradley?
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
I would like to speak to you this morning about the adoption of a new reading English Language Arts curriculum for the districts. It's a K-12 company. And I want to give you a little background as to how we got here first and what the process was. So after hearing from our school advisory committees that there was a need for improvements as it related to our reading curriculum, we pulled together a team of teachers, instructional coaches, and principals. And we sat together, we had some really robust conversations about what is best practice and what are our understandings about what we need in an English Language Arts curriculum K-12. Some of the discussions were about aligning the grade levels and the from elementary to middle to high school. Some of the discussions were about just the day-to-day, what is best practice phonics instruction, phonemic awareness, comprehension. And then also the SEL components were important to the team, and the focus on authentic literature that had our students at the forefront was also important as well. So we put together a rubric. The team created a rubric, and we utilized that rubric when we pulled or called different companies together. We had a book caravan, is what we called it. We had several companies come to us and present to the smaller team, and they sent physical and online materials for us to review. We utilized the rubric that was created to score each one of those companies. And at the end of the day, 3 of them kind of floated to the top. And out of those 3, we're asking the board today to approve McGraw-Hill as our new reading vendor for K-12 instruction. McGraw-Hill has, one of the things that allowed it to rise to the top, I believe, was the fact that the SEL component, the social emotional learning pieces, are embedded in the everyday lessons for our students rather than some standalone. It has a very good integration of online and in-person materials that was easy to navigate for our staff, and a vast library of authentic multicultural books. And it received all green scores or passing scores on Ed Reports. Ed Reports is a vetting company that looks at all the different curricular pieces that are used in the country, actually, and they're vetted on different items, and McGraw-Hill passed every area. And so we're asking that the board approve McGraw-Hill for our new reading series, please. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Paul, I see you had your hand up.
I'll get that unmute off. How does this, like the cost you're paying to McGraw-Hill compare to what other school corporations in Indiana are paying them for the same product?
McGraw-Hill is competitive. It is not the most costly, actually. It's kind of like one of those mid prices, but we were able to negotiate lots of free materials, and it's the same cost as most others.
Well, I guess I don't mean McGraw-Hill compared to others, but I mean, what are other school corporations paying McGraw-Hill for the same product?
The same price. It's a set price.
Yes, it is
set across the state of Indiana then?
It's a set price for their curriculum, yes.
Okay.
I assume it's just an off-the-shelf kind of product, and
that's correct, right?
Just like you would purchase any other good. Was the you guys have gone through this process of creating these curriculum advisory committees as part of a more additional engagement with the community? How were they part of this process? How are they engaged, and what did they have to say?
So those same people were on our team that looked at the different companies during our book caravan, and they were a part of the discussions that we had around the need for a more rich multicultural offering for our stories and books that the students would interact with.
And I think one of the things that we're excited about, and I know that Kim's mentioned here, but I just want to reiterate, is that we, for the first time here at GEAR, are going to have a cycle for curriculum like all school districts have, so that, year one, the staff, the teachers, this community will know you're going to have a reading adoption, then year 2, a math, and then year 3, science, etc. So that at the end of that 5 years, you go back to reading after the end of the 5 years and reevaluate your reading curriculum. And that's what all school districts do to see if it's still relevant or if it needs to be updated. We've never had a cycle here, so we're just starting that cycle. And this is the first of the cycle. Next year, we're going to look at math, etc., so that we don't get 10 years behind or 15 years behind on any particular curriculum.
Absolutely. Because just like technology pieces or just like those online pieces, they change rapidly. And so you want to make certain that you have the most up-to-date in front of our students.
That's helpful. Thank you. How long is the contract in terms of the term?
It is a 5-year, I believe. You get the materials for that length of time, 5 or 6, I believe. I'm sorry that I don't have that answer right off. It's a
Here it says
standard.
6.
6? Okay,
Here's-
yeah. It's
yeah,
usually
that's what it says
5
here.
to 6. Yeah.
Okay. And is that price for all 6 years?
That is the price for all 6, yes. There are no additional costs after that.
Great. Wes, were you chiming in with a question?
Mr. Chairman, you asked the same questions that I was, so yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, length of term and total cost. Thank you.
And while we're on cost, as I've asked on a couple of the others, what bucket of money will this come out of?
This is coming out of the title bucket.
The federal funding.
Some of the ESSER funds, the federal bucket.
Thank you. Other questions for Ms. Bradley or Dr. McNulty regarding this item?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, speaking to the more broader topic that you brought up about, and Dr. Page talked briefly about extending or starting to establish a pattern, a program, a method in which to update on a regular schedule. What's your next? What did you say you're going to do math next year, or
yes?
Did I hear that?
Yes. Yeah, so we've got a 5-year plan now, or thereabouts, and so next year will be math, and so we're assembling, actually, as we speak, the math curriculum committee, and comprised of teachers, administrators, and that curriculum committee, and they're going to be working all summer, looking at different curriculum best practices in math curriculum, if you will, and then
what's after that?
Science.
Okay, are you going to get through this? Is it a 5-year? Is it a 5-year process, and you'll repeat the cycle again in 5 years?
That's correct.
Okay. Are you gonna be able to get through most, if not all, this before these ESSER funds run out?
We will not get through all of this when the ESSER funds run out, but we'll get through about 3 or 4 years of it, and then after that, we'll use our title funds for whatever's left over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're talking about those ESSER funds, just going back to the conversation we were having earlier, this is another one of those things that we need to take advantage of here early, because we need to have it in place in time for next school year. And so it's a cornerstone, so to speak, of what your plan will be. It's not something you plan to change.
That's correct.
Absolutely.
Are there other questions, comments? All right. Well, with that, I entertain a motion.
I move that we authorize Gary Community School Corporation to contract with McGraw-Hill for the provision of ELA curriculum for grades K through 12 at a cost of $893,786.40 for a 6-year term.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Courtney, would you call the roll?
Paul Joyce,
Yes.
Wes Bennett,
Yes.
Tracy Brown,
Yes.
Rebecca Kubacki,
Yes.
and Justin McAdam.
Yes.
5-0.
All right, contract is approved. That concludes our scheduled business for today. Is there any new business to come before the board before we adjourn? All right. Well, hearing none, thank you all for your participation today, and appreciate the conversations we had. We will follow up on those items and communicate that back to the other board members. So
thanks, everyone.
we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.